I'm Rev Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messages God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Rev Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Today is our Christmas show, and we have our three elves.
Those would be the wise people.
Okay, better yet,
Please.
three of the wise people. But that would just make you so old. Don't want to do that.
Jesus.
Anyway, wise person number one to my right is Chris Griscom, who is the founder of the Sanctuary of Light Church and the Light Institute here in Galveston, New Mexico. Sparkles in the center is Reverend Brendalyn, Batchelor of Unity Santa Fe. And at our end is our good friend, Father Murphy, who is retired Episcopal priest. Today's prophetic topic is God is love. This phrase can be found in the text of Edgar Casey's reading number 262-103. For those of you not familiar with 262, the 262 series is the one that Casey did for the first Search for God group. And they would come to him regularly trying to copy what he did, emulate what he did, and they would give them readings. And there's a 2-volume set out called Search for God. We don't want to get distracted with that, but that's the 262 series. This reading was given on the 20th day of December, 1936, and the complete statement reads as follows. For as ye choose to enter, so ye have entered. As ye choose to live, so may ye live. As he choose to give of himself, that there might be a greater understanding, a greater knowledge, yea, the showing forth of the wisdom of God, that God is love, poured forth upon the children of men in this experience. And we're going to look at the whole Christmas holiday from our guest's perspective. But before we do that, let's do a quick introduction. You should all know them by now. They've been here almost as much as I have. Chris, you want to start?
I'm speechless. You mean you want me to say something about me?
Yeah,
You said something.
Exactly.
Well,
Introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
I'm Chris, and my work is about consciousness and expanding consciousness and allowing the divine source to live within us, which is our story today. This is the time of birthing the Christed energy in ourselves. That's my work.
Reverend B.
I'm Brendalyn Batchelor, the minister at Unity Santa Fe, and I celebrated my 19th anniversary as minister of Unity Santa Fe on December 1st.
Congratulations.
And at Unity Santa Fe, our vision is that we are a vibrant, thriving spiritual community that celebrates the oneness and divinity of all creation. And our mission is to raise consciousness, transform lives, heal the planet, one person at a time, beginning with, and we all say together, me. And my personal commitment is to support you in being, knowing your magnificence and your unlimited potential to live your life centered in peace, wisdom, and love, no matter what.
Wonderful. Father.
Father Richard Murphy, the retired rector of St. Bede's Episcopal Church here in Santa Fe for 14 years, so I can't match your longevity at Unity. But I've been retired for the past 2 years and have probably been busier than I was when I was in full-time ministry. I'm on a couple of nonprofit boards and also filling in at local churches. And I would say one of the areas that I'm working on is developing folks to become aware of what is called the beloved community and how we can grow in that.
Beautiful. And let's use that as a jumping off point. let's start with, because this is really, it's about the Christmas season. We're not going to get into a whole lot of other religions and what their practices are this year. We'll do that next year's show. You're all invited back. We start with Advent. That's a show you and I did a few years ago. Do you want to start? What is Advent? What is the meaning? What is the message?
I need to be reminded of those shows. What did we do? So I don't repeat myself. Advent, at least within the Christian tradition, is a traditionally it's always been looked on as a mini Lent, but thankfully I think theology's changed over the past several years, and it's more a time of expectation, waiting for the child that's about to be born. But it's also a time of conversion, a time of turning our lives around. And I like to think of taking an assessment of where we're going and what we're going to bring to that moment with that child coming in.
Brendalyn?
Yeah, at Unity, what I focused on yesterday in my Sunday message was the advent of our lives and that time of coming out of darkness into the light in that expectation of birthing the Christ within us. And to really, I started my talk by saying, darkness happens, get over it. It just happens. And I just brought it real down home and personal about, sometimes during this season we can go into depression and darkness, and to just really embrace that, to embrace it, be with it, and then focus on the light. Focus on the light instead of the darkness, because once we do that, the darkness is dispelled.
Let me jump in here for a second. You just reminded me of something. That there was a beautiful saying, and I can't remember all of it. Maybe one of you can jump in with me afterwards at the end, because I'm missing the end. It's attributed to Einstein in college. And I forget the question from the professor, but his response was, there is no such thing as cold. Cold is the absence of heat. There is no such thing as darkness. Mm-hmm. Darkness is the absence of light. And I think he said there's no such thing as evil. Evil is the absence of love. But I'm not 100% sure of the last one. So darkness only happens when we're disconnected?
I think so. It's like the prodigal son, he goes to the far country, but the moment he turns around, the conversion experience, the moment he turns around, the forgiveness, the light, God is there.
You're dying to talk. I can feel it.
No, I'm really not. Because we've thrown something else into it when we separate out the darkness of light and light, because I see darkness definitely can represent that unconsciousness, but it can also represent, as you're talking about the Advent, that sleeping, that peaceful energy within us. But I would have to say, from my perspective, that I would dissolve the Advent altogether. Because to me, we spend too much of our lives waiting. That's one of the teachings that comes from the Light Institute, is to never wait in life. In other words, it's, first of all, Christmas, is our choice of time, because there's a lot of evidence that Christ was not born at this time of year in the first place. So for me, never waiting for the future, but whatever this means, this Christed energy means, let us have it now. Exactly. Let us find, as you were saying, it's beautiful, to say, how shall I look at my life and pluck from it something that allows me to be a part of that Christed energy. So not the waiting for the moment, but to be the moment. Because that's what Edgar Cayce was saying, and that's what's said in the Bible in many great books, is that as Jesus said, all that I have done, all that I am, so are you. In a very common way of saying it, And so I think we use this season as a way to look within, but also to reinvent, to become that energy, to be reborn. And so forget the tomorrows for me.
I totally agree, because to me, Christmas is just the time that we remember what we're supposed to be doing every day.
Yes.
And that is birthing the Christ every day, every moment of the day.
Yes.
And we just celebrate it more at Christmas time, and in case we've forgotten, right?
Yeah, the moment's always within us.
Always within us.
It's always within
Absolutely.
us, and we just have to to act on it. I couldn't help but think that there's a notion that's been on my spiritual soul, so to speak, recently, and that is I was thinking of life here in Santa Fe. We've got some of the greatest restaurants in the world, some of the greatest art galleries in the world. We're also the world capital of U-turns. Whenever you're driving down the road, somebody in front of you is going to be invariably, without signaling, making that U-turn.
From the right lane.
From the right across. And I got thinking on that recently, and I said, what a beautiful Advent theme. This is a time for all of us to make a U-turn with our lives, to reinvent ourselves, to change directions. I mean, this past Thanksgiving season, my goodness, if anything has indicated that we're getting a bit out of control is all the shopping ads and all the jumping into the bargain seasons and all. We're losing control of that, or the awareness of that inner light within us. I was thinking of Nelson Mandela's death recently. I mean, if there's ever a man that's moved from the darkness into the light and taught a world how the possibility of turning your life around and turning a nation around is absolutely possible through forgiveness, through compassion, and through reconciliation. So all that happens with U-turns.
And I have to say, when we talk about the commercialism, I mean, look at what we do with Christmas here. Yeah. And my spin on that would be contemplate that you are the gift. Not the gifts that you're giving to everyone else or that you're receiving from someone, but what would it mean to actually experience yourself as a gift? What would that mean? It would be love. It would be embracing. It would be knowledge. It would be all the things that Edgar Cayce was saying meant love. Christed energy. You know, can you carry that? Can you walk around with that? We can.
Yeah. Now let's jump on that for a second. We have a choice of focuses. Jesus comes into this world and then passes on. And now we establish a religion. We have Jesus' teachings, and we have then the story of, and I call it a story of this virgin birth and the resurrection. Let's leave the resurrection aside for a while.
We'll save that, yeah.
The focus, in my opinion, went away from the teachings from the very beginning.
Absolutely.
And started the miracle admiration of the early Catholic Church, and then almost every Christian denomination that followed after that. Can we turn around over 2,000 years of momentum?
We must. We must, because we've outgrown the negativity of it. We've outgrown the smallness of man's interpretation of it. Let's talk about that virgin birth for a moment from a woman's perspective here. I feel, first of all, you know, that the concept of virgin birth is not Christian. It was known before Christianity. And so it meant purity and magic. But what happened in our realm was that it began to separate Jesus out from his humanness and Mary out from being a sexual being. And sexuality is something that we began to delineate good from evil. This can't be divine. This can't be divine. Instead of the Christed energy, which is that everything is divine. And so, you know, I think that in Christmas, if we could just let go of it has to be a virgin birth, which is magnificent, but let's put the energy back where it belongs. It's not about the Virgin Mary. It's about the Christed energy coming onto the planet and offering us the greatest gift.
Well, you know, in Isaiah, what has been interpreted as virgin just simply in the original language meant young maiden, and a young maiden shall give birth. And whether or not that was a precursor of Jesus, I mean, that can be argued. But it's always, you know, that's been a misrepresentation. And I couldn't agree with Chris more. We've lost our sense of what happens as a result of this birth. It is that in the Christian tradition that Jesus God is in Jesus, and that Jesus came within Judaism, not within Christianity. He came as a Jew. And his notion was to build a community. He announced the so-called the kingdom, which I think in our 21st century parlance is better understood as beloved community that the King and others have talked about. And that community is one of love, is one of reconciliation, is one of redemption. And that's the message that Jesus was always pointing beyond himself. He never pointed inward. He always pointed out to what his mission was within that Jewish context.
And offered all his essence as a gift to everyone.
Yes, yeah, I love the idea of gift.
Yes.
Yeah, and also the whole thing with Mary is it set up a for women
Yes.
an ideal that none of us could ever realize.
Possibly.
I mean, you know, we're just chopped liver. You know,
Yes, exactly.
there's no way we can ever, you know, see
Measure to
herself,
that.
You know, the Immaculate Conception, where she was born of a virgin. You know, and it's so. I love the fact that we can have these traditions. We can have our sparkles.
Yes.
We can have the tree. We can have
celebration.
We can have the story, but if in Unity we look at the story as the story of our journey,
Yes.
and that
Yes.
we have to have that virgin state of consciousness in order to birth the Christ every day of the year. And we you know, we have to have the masculine and the feminine, Joseph and Mary, and the donkey, all of it.
All
We know
of it
we got to
there.
have all of it.
And I love what you're just saying about the virgin, because it strikes something in my head, that for me the virgin doesn't mean untouched. It means untouched in a higher octave, in a higher way. In other words, we can be a part of the tragedies of birth and death and drugs and all that happen, war, and all those happens in the world. But the untouchedness is a part of an advanced consciousness that sees through the human experience and touches the divine source, the divine essence.
Yeah.
That's interesting. We're quoting Casey to start with. Casey's take on this whole thing is that the virgin birth actually did happen. But it's what you're saying, and what I'm hearing everybody else saying, is that it was a pureness of soul,
Yes,
That's,
is what they were referring to.
yes.
You know, and that was the message. How do we get it back?
Well, I would just want to add to that, too, in that notion of virginity. I think we can understand it a number of ways. You know, they say theology is always contextual. But I think part of that virginity is the absolute openness of this young woman who was probably no more than 14, at the most 15, this openness to God to say yes, freely, knowing what the consequences were. I mean, there's a certain purity of commitment, a certain purity of openness. That there's a number of ways to look at that.
yeah, the innocence.
The
It's
innocence,
like,
absolutely, that's
you
the
know,
word.
Jesus said, unless you become his little children, you can't enter the kingdom. And she had that.
She said,
And
"Let it
that's-
be."
There's a part of it. That's
All
what
of
we
us
have
that
to be.
have that as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah,
if we choose,
if we can find.
if we
yes.
focus there.
Yeah.
If the society supports it. That was one of the things in the Casey. There's a beautiful book. I don't think it's in publication anymore. It's Edgar Casey's Story of Jesus. And it was a compilation of Casey readings on the life of Jesus from before birth to the cross. And it was compiled by an author by the name of Jeffrey Furst, F-U-R-S-T. And I don't know if the ARE has a copy or still has copies that they sell from the bookstore. I know it's not in publication, but they sometimes have back issues in the bookstore that they sell. And it covers this whole thing, but it was not just about the purity of Mary, it was the collective. It was the Essene community that believed in this. It was the Essene community that supported her and the family in this endeavor, that they were not sure if it was going to be her or they thought it was going to be her, but there was like a half dozen or dozen other young women there as well. And it was if I remember the book well, it was the appearance of Gabriel pointing her out and saying, "You are the chosen one." And the community accepted it, even the ones who were, quote, in competition.
It's the same thing as today when we're talking about community. You know, we as a community choose what we take from that. So what they did, it was prophesized. What they did is they took a prophecy and they made it a part of their reality and set themselves on a new path, a new spiritual path. Isn't that what Christmas is about? You know, is to take the prophecy and make it something that we belong to. Mm-hmm. Whether we're Jews or Muslims or anybody else, use the essence and make it something that's real. That's the gift.
Oh, yes. I want to back this up. Father, I look at you as the resident biblical expert.
You're in trouble. Big trouble.
Merry Christmas. If my recollection is correct, Matthew and Luke are the only two Gospels that talk about the virgin birth. Mm-hmm. Paul, who precedes the Gospels, doesn't talk about it.
Yeah, right. Nor does Mark.
Nor does John. Yeah. Can you enlighten us as to why this? Why is some people? I mean, if this thing actually happened, and I'm not saying I don't believe that. Why isn't everybody writing about it? Why were only these two folks writing about it? Why did it get brought into when all these other people were ignoring it?
There's a 2-volume series that's been out for a number of years called The Birth of the Messiah by a New Testament scholar, the late Raymond Brown, who looked precisely into that. And again, with my, I don't claim to be a PhD biblical scholar by any means, but as he pointed out, historically, not theologically, the two narratives on the birth of Christ, which differ a bit, come along quite a bit later than the original Gospels. And as Brown surmised in his book, and it's been a long time since I've read the books, that at some point people began to ask, well, where did he come from? Mm-hmm. What happened? What was it like? And they try to recount. Now they're writing Matthew in the year 70, Luke probably in the year 80, so 50, almost 60 years after the Christ event. And they started piecing together this story, this memory. And Brown would conclude that the two narratives are actually separate Gospels, that Matthew and Luke, or whoever the authors were, redacted into that original Gospel. And it's, I think the important thing to remember is not so much the differences that exist in the stories, but this is how people remember and record the event. This is how people receive the story. And I think one of the neat things in their Gospels is they're pointing out to us, how do you receive the story? How do you receive the narrative? How does that impact on you? So they were somewhat separate from the original Gospels, and there are differences. As for Paul and the others, my thinking is that simply they just assumed that people knew this and didn't need to write it down, and that they had other more important things that they wanted to get across. Mark, for instance, was much more eager to get his gospel, the first gospel, written. So I think there's not too much that's complicated about that.
Anybody want to jump in on anything else?
No.
I think it was a quote.
Well, I do.
Go for it.
Is our trouble, the challenge we have is trying to take it literally.
Exactly.
And it was never meant to be taken literally. And I know my rabbi friends say, you know, they really get that in terms of the Hebrew scriptures.
Yes.
They get it, that it's not about literal happenings. But somehow in the Christian world, to such an extent, at least in my upbringing, it was like this happened, and then you can't figure out, well, why aren't they consistent? All of that big question comes up because we're trying to take it literally instead of spiritually.
And why don't we come back to the birth itself? Mm-hmm. You know, that's the point. The point is that at that moment, a new opportunity for human evolution occurred. Mm-hmm. And it changed the entire planet. And that's what we want to hold on to. What was this child? You know, how did the Magi say, you know, we knew that not only would he be a king, but that he was God. They knew that. And that's the interesting part, you know, that we right from the beginning, it was attributed to this baby. And in modern terms, you know, we might recognize a divine energy in all babies and in the child in us. So I think Christmas needs to come back to the birthing conversation.
I want to get past the Advent stage, which we already have, but I believe this is one of your quotes. We are called to be faithful stewards of what is entrusted to us as God's people. That was, I think, the definition you had used. I think it was even back on radio as to describe Advent. And that's what I'm hearing from everybody. So that gets us right into this. What is the message of Christmas? Is there a religious and a spiritual message, and are they different? And why are we focused on one as the other? How's that for a large question?
We might practice them differently, but the message, I think, is the same. We may use a ritual or symbolisms to express religiously a little bit differently than spiritually, but the message is the same, that there is a birth, a rebirth within ourselves. We have a template of Christed energy. What is Christed energy? God is love. It's compassion, it's healing, it's nurturing, it's community. It's all of those things. And Christmas, the way we celebrate Christmas, the way we come together as families, is an expression of that.
I was going to say something, but I'm going to temper that. My experience with families coming together is, I mean, okay, I separated myself from religion early on, and my religion wasn't any Christian based; it was Jewish based. But so I mean, early on, I had no quote religious experience. I got the opportunity to start experiencing it with my second wife because she wasn't Jewish, and that destroyed a lot of relationships in the family, which was okay. They were already destroyed. Sorry about that. Anyway.
Not at all.
What I'm trying to get to is I don't see family coming together with real camaraderie, with real love. My experience has seen family come together because obligation, the food is good, the liquor is better, and there's presents. Now that may sound cynical, but I mean, I go walking in the mornings. Some days, especially on weekends or holidays, I can't go to at the gym where I walk. I walk up and down Cerritos Road. I was out on early morning on, what is it called, Black Friday. All of these stores that I on Zeffirano, Target, and Army Navy or whatever it is, and Best Buy, they all had all these cars all parked, and they've probably been there since midnight, some of them. Got to buy these things. Got to get these deals. Got to get these presents. I've been to Christmases where the kids have had more presents they could ever possibly use.
Absolutely.
Not even in any year, but in a lifetime of a child.
I got sort of a different spin on that, so to speak. And granted, I mean, and I just mentioned it, we're into this chaos of commercialism and materialism. But I watched some of the newscasts over the Black Friday weekend or whatever it was, and I heard workers saying, I need the extra money so I can get groceries and I can, pay the rent and not have to worry about being that tight this season. And people buying things and saying, and one guy with his 2 kids saying, I can afford this stuff today. Tomorrow I might not be able to, but these low prices. Now, granted, we're manipulated into that, and that should be an issue of economic justice that should be around there all the time. I think for some people, they've been manipulated to respond to that, I guess, so to speak. Christmas for me is, and I think one of the things that I was just thinking of too, I mean, I grew up in a broken home and eventually was raised by a single parent. But at Christmas, my memory always go back to when my parents, and I'm 68, and I still go back to those Christmases by the tree with my family being together. In the neighborhood we lived in an urban setting, it was a wider community. And it was like it takes a village, so to speak. That doesn't exist anymore. We've become such a fragmented society through moving, through dislocation, through economic inequality. And I think we've got to somehow work hard, especially us who are faith leaders, to work to restore at least that feeling of the goodness of community, the goodness of family.
And the opportunity, I think what you're saying is so true, that so often we fall short of the potential of Christmas when we come together as a family, because we remember what we didn't get as presents, or who was the child that was loved the most, or all of those conversations come in. But the opportunity there is to mend it, is to use the symbolism of rebirth to mend where we are angry at our parents or separated from our family. And maybe we don't do that, but it's there for us. And I'm a very patient person. I see life through many lifetimes, an eternity of lifetimes, incarnations of the soul. And so I feel that any time there's a focus that comes to us, whether we pick it up or use it or not, or we misuse it, it still seeds in our consciousness. And so families can be mended.
Yeah, and a lot of it is, maybe the reason we come together and all this stuff comes up is that it's being brought up to be healed.
That's right, exactly.
Do I get it this year? Am I going to heal it this year, or is it just going to come back again next year? But there's always that opportunity to birth something different than what has been.
That's a good way of looking at it, Brendalyn. Because, if you look at Christmas as God's love becoming a part of us, it's also the gift of God's healing. If we look at Jesus coming in to heal the world, and the message for us is to take the meaning of that moment, become healers ourselves, to restore the world, to kon olam, as our Jewish brothers and sisters would say, to heal and repair the world. So I've never thought of that before. That's a neat thought, that it's also the gift of God's healing for us.
Yeah, because it's just going to keep being brought up, and it seems that holidays
give us that gift.
Oh yeah, it has that extra
that choice,
oomph
that
there
opportunity
to give us that.
See, the drinking and the good meals I associate with Irish funerals. So not with Christmas. I always knew when somebody died.
Let's look at these gifts just for a second. How much of this do you believe is tied into this whole mythology of the three wise men bringing gifts? I mean, to me, there was a spiritual component to each of those gifts, but I think that has seeded the concept of, all these other things, coming out, and the newest, the greatest, the latest. Have we, from the beginning, lost sight of the message, even within the mythology that was created?
Well, we often take an initial idea and then expand it in terms of our own repertoire, what we experience now. Talking about coming back to the healing of the planet. Frankincense has always been given to the king, to the priest, as an offering of the spiritual potential, because it literally uplifts the spirit. It has that effect on the physiological and emotional body. And myrrh is really about healing. It's about creating a defense mechanism in the body that allows the body to be ageless, to rejuvenate itself. So myrrh was a perfect gift for a birth, because it was saying, you will live forever, not death. You will live forever. And so if we took those aspects, let us acknowledge each one. When you give a gift, the idea is, I love you. And I show it to you through this material thing. I happen to love gift giving, because when I find just the right thing for someone, it just delights me no end. And then I'm giving something that says, I honor you, I see you, I love you.
Yeah, but that's unique.
Well, maybe yes and no. Yes and no.
Fairly unique. I mean, to me, it's maybe just my own distorted thinking, that so much gift giving is about the giving and not the receiving. We outdo somebody else. I'm going to get the bigger present. I'm going to get the most presents. I'm going to get the most expensive presents for whoever. You know, open mind first. I mean, I wasn't big on celebrating. I've worked hard to avoid these situations. For the most part, I've been successful because to me, there's no spirit. There is no religion. It's really just all ego-based. I mean,
but again, you're coming to it, and we all have to come to it from our perspective. What was our experience? I had some of those experiences too, but that doesn't mean it's everybody's truth. It's not everybody's experience.
Or from one moment to another. You see, because you had that experience, you gained a deeper perspective. You know, what is a deeper gift of receiving or giving? Maybe it's a smile, or what we're doing right now. You know, everyone, each year, each part of our lives, certainly I think the four of us would say, as we've gotten along in life, we see things from a deeper perspective. So the symbolisms that we use take on a different meaning.
Is it age, or is it what the work we've all done?
Would it be the work that we've done?
So maybe that's the message.
Experience.
That's the
It's
gift.
experience, exactly.
The gift is the experience. You know, we talk about in 12 steps, experience, strength, and hope. This is not theory.
That's right.
You know, each one of you have worked hard. 19 years, you said 14 years in one place.
57 years
Yes.
in incarnational work.
Yes, exactly. Carrying the message. Can we build momentum? Can we supplant it? I mean, you talked about Nelson Mandela, and I mean, it's all there, and maybe I've just gotten cynical in old age. It's a moment to fill a gap on TV. And there's some people who really care, and I think there's a lot of people who just, okay, what's the next thing?
But your job and mine is to be the Christmas we want to see in the world.
Okay.
We have to be that. That's our opportunity. That's the gift of Christ, of Christmas present.
And I think there's more of that in the world than there is the other way. There's always, there's always enough people, enough of us working to keep the dream alive, to keep the hope alive. And we can only hope that that becomes a grace that helps transform some folks around us. After all, we're not the change agents. It's God working through us. And it's that gift of God within us that we have to implant on the world.
Plant the seed.
Plant the seed.
It's not our job to water it. It's ours to plant the seed.
And to be it. And then, I mean, that's what we talk about in 12-step
and
work.
Look how
we've got to be, bear witness to
carry the story.
To the story, the true
I love
story.
that. Yeah. And look how clever and how divine he was, Mandela, to die at this moment.
Absolutely.
It was such an exquisite moment for him to choose right before Christmas. You know, because it does say that we have templates, that each of us is a template. Each of us has that opportunity. So in his passing, everyone thinks about his life from what he experienced, to come away with that lighted, illuminated, let go of all your hatred. Let go of it all and make the world a better place. And he has really given the world a gift by passing at this time.
I will stop playing Scrooge. Let's turn this on to the other side. We've got about 20 minutes left, give or take a little bit. The message of Christmas: love, compassion, hope, trust, transformation, conversion. Let's build a new Christmas. Right here, right now. I throw it out to you. We have at least 5 people who are going to watch this show over the...
Well, I mean, that's what we, at Unity, our services are all around the meaning, the personal, the story of Christmas in our own lives. and that journey to Bethlehem, and birthing the Christ. And we do it through our a candle lighting service on Christmas Eve, where we have our 12 disciple candles, those aspects that they represent in us, developing them under the direction of the Christ.
What are those 12 aspects?
Well, they are faith, will, understanding, imagination, zeal, power, love, wisdom, strength, order, release, life, and release. That we have to have all those, and Charles Fillmore located them in the body, and each of the disciples is assigned to one of those powers. I call Thaddeus the plumber, the release. We got to have the release, and to really look at how these powers are working in our lives. That's what our focus is on Christmas Eve. On Christmas Sunday, the Sunday before Christmas, we go through the whole Christmas story, and we look at Mary and me, and Joseph and me, and the donkey and me, all of them, all those parts of us, and we try to just bring it down home and personal. So we try to change anybody who may not have heard that before. They have an opportunity to redo Christmas in that way.
Yeah, I think in a similar way, when I was in parish ministry and preaching on Christmas, probably I always mention, much to the consternation of the congregation hearing all the time, find your place at the stable. Find your place in the story. Think of the shepherds, the lowest in society, who were the first ones to go to the stable, and put yourself in their places. And they're the ones that come and they take the message away. And they become really the first missionaries, if we want to say that, the first evangelists, when they go and spread the word. But and if you want to be next to the donkey, and
or be the
donkey, be a donkey whisperer, or be the donkey.
And me.
But find out where you stand, where you place yourself, and then find out what that means to you. Just spend some time reflecting on what it means to be there and what you take away from it. Because it's not just a place to go to and be; it's a place to go to and go away from.
Yeah, and Herod and me, that part of me that, wants to kill the baby, There's all those aspects of us.
Yes.
All the characters in the story, all the places, they're all parts of each and every one of us.
So for me, it's what you do with that. Absolutely. I would say that this moment, this birthing, again, is the rebirthing of the self. Do we dare? Because very few aspects of religion in the past have supported this concept that you could be the Christed being, that each and all of us have that within us, that we've psychogenetically inherited that from this divine God template. And so we can be all of these characters, but it's what we choose to do with that at any moment. I used to tell my students, I had an exercise in consciousness whereby we would put on halos, because for me the halo is a physiological thing. That's why they painted it, because they saw it, because it wasn't just a concept and all that it means. And so I would say to them, okay, now you're going to imagine that you are wearing the halo, therefore you have that Christed, that exquisite illuminated energy. You are the gift. Now go down to the plaza and walk around the plaza. And I remember, I think I've told this story before, that one of my students, a beautiful Indian girl, very brilliant, and so everyone always looks at her. She walked around the plaza for an hour and nobody even looked at her, which was the first time it had ever experienced, and she was carrying her halo. I'm a divine being. Do we dare? I'm a divine being. And finally, after an hour, she said, I'm leaving, this is ridiculous. And there was a drunkard sitting on the ground. And just as she was walking off the plaza, he looked up at her and he said, just keep shining. Wow. And she realized that he saw her. He saw that energy in her. And so what I would say about it is, be brave. Try it on. Try it on without, I'm not good enough, I'm a sinner. Try it on without all of that. And see what it is to be Christed. Because is that not Goddess love? That was the first thing that I was ever taught as a little child, going to Sunday school. The picture of the lamb and that little sentence that said, God is love. And I said, oh, this is the best, And it was a very long time before I heard the rest of it. And I'm so glad I had that moment of God is love. And it always meant to me that I am love. I am love and I am loved.
Made in the image and likeness.
Right.
Absolutely. Whether or not we're female.
And regardless of whether or not we're acting like it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because it's in you. There's the seed. And you cannot take away that seed. And we have not been given permission. So my drop in here for Christmas is give yourself permission. Let go of the chatter. Let go of all the this way, that way, and the other way. And just try it on as an experience. It's a great experience. My higher self has always said that the only truth is what you experience, and that truth changes as you grow.
That takes us right back to the core. That as a religion, there can only be one truth. But we are sitting here, 4 of us, that we don't all practice the same religion, but there are multiple truths that all come together and paint a picture.
And it's a
Well,
beautiful
religion
picture.
is of man, and spirituality, I think, is of God. And at the mystical level, there's no difference in the religions. Whether it's a Jewish mystic, a Christian mystic, an Eastern mystic, whatever, there is no difference. There's no rules, there's no concepts, there's none of that.
In the essence.
There's just God.
In the essence. The purpose
And that's
of it.
where we
the purpose of it.
started this.
Yeah.
What happened to God what are the sign, where's Christ in Christmas? I agree with what all you're saying. I mean, I'm waiting for everybody to catch up.
Never wait.
Don't wait.
Be it yourself.
Well, I am, but I mean,
Spirit.
I'm trying, what I'm saying is,
That is enough, Rev Phil.
We're the
It is
agents of
enough.
transformation. We're the agents of love that came into the world. We're the agents of God's spirituality. The Dalai Lama says in one of his books that no matter where he travels in the world and whatever group he meets with, he said the universal constant is people's longing for health and happiness. And I would add to that healing as well, those 3. And we are all agents of that regardless of what our traditions, denominations.
That's right. Or how we do it.
Or how we do it.
Yeah, and nobody can keep it from us. Nobody can stop us.
Yeah.
We are totally powerful in terms of...
so then my karmic lesson is how to deal with frustration, because I look at this world and see the transformations that are possible and keep asking the question, why are you not transforming?
But you're looking at the action and not the essence. Right. A guru once said, see God in each other.
Pardon me?
See God in each other.
Yeah.
We say at the Light Institute, pierce the heart.
Yeah.
Pierce the heart, pierce through the actions, because all negativity, all evil is only pain. It's just the sorrow and the pain and the unconsciousness of the self. And so Christmas is the gift of a new self, a self that belongs to you.
And the peace in it is to be accepting of what is in these other people. And Jesus said, if you have faith as a mustard seed, you can say this mountain move and it'll move. And I say that if you really got it together, you'll be fine with it staying there.
Right.
And it's like, if I can have peace as long as I'm not trying to make somebody else
That's right.
into my mold. As long as if I can just accept what is, that's the piece of Christmas.
And that what is, again, it's dynamic. The cosmos, the evolution of God is there. The evolution of the cosmos is there. It's not standing still.
It's all God.
So, exactly. So, what is at this moment? This person, this frustration you have, it could dissolve tomorrow if you just chose to pierce the heart. And I know you do. Or you wouldn't be doing the work that you do.
The prayer life I have is very traditional in that it's ordered around what we call the daily office, morning and evening prayer and compline. And usually at the end of the day, usually in evening prayer or in compline, I'll stop and think at a time of meditation, where did I see Jesus today? Where did I see God's goodness? And oftentimes it's not going to be loud explosions from heaven coming, but I'll see it in friendship. I'll see it in somebody reaching out to somebody else. I'll see it in a myriad of ways. And I think sometimes the blindness we can get caught up in is not seeing that and not taking the time at some time during the day to see, whoa, wait a minute. There was a moment of grace. There was a moment of goodness. And
infinite moments.
Infinite moments. And they're always around us.
We're starting to run down on time. I know you have some announcements. You don't have any announcements. You're
In
retired.
retirement, there's no services to announce.
I don't know if you have any announcements.
Go
you
to
wanna
church.
make, but
I do. Wait, I have one, but it's not for Christmas itself, because to me, again, each day is Christmas. Each day is that rebirthing, and so we can celebrate that. Celebrate it with your joy and your gratitude. But I would say that I do have an announcement, and that is that at the Light Institute, we celebrate the beginning of the new year, because it's another way of saying, I've gone through this whatever, and I'm now new. And so we have a fabulous firewalk, which is a great way to start the new year.
So
To
when
run
is it?
through the fire, it's the 31st, and it starts at about 9, and at midnight in Galisteo we run through the fire, and it's like the Native Americans used to do. It's a very long, it's about 26 feet long, but it's this wide, and it's so wonderful to feel that you are the magic, because no one's ever been burned and no one's ever been hurt, and so it's experiencing miracles. And I love to do that as a beginning of a new year, to say, this is who we are, not who we've been.
so they can just reach out to you, just show up.
Well, they can contact the Light Institute,
Okay.
and
we've
that's on your program.
been, we've been flashing the
Yes, so.
contact.
Yes.
Well, we start with Christmas Sunday, which is the Sunday before Christmas, the 22nd, at our 10:30 service. And we do the traditional Christmas story. We read scripture, I give the metaphysical interpretation, and then we sing, either the choir or all of us together sing all those great traditional Christmas songs. And then Christmas Eve, we have the 12-power candle lighting to call forth those 12 powers in us under the direction of the Christ. And then on New Year's Eve at 5 o'clock, we have a burning bowl ceremony where we write down all those things that we would like to release, and we burn them and
Fabulous.
let them be transformed.
We do that at the Firewalk too. It's a great concept.
And actually, the Sunday before New Year's Eve, we get a little ahead of ourselves, and we do a white stone ceremony where we let Spirit reveal to us a new name, which we write on the stone, and for the new year, this is who I want to be in the new year. So lots of ritual that I just love.
Beautiful. We got about 5 minutes left. How about parting thought from each one of you? We started with you, Chris. Let's start this with you.
A parting thought is that we are all Christed. We have come to this planet at a very specific time. Trust yourself. Dare to feel that you have that goodness, that you can heal, that just your presence is enough. There's nothing demanded of you. There's no action that you must carry through, but to be present on this planet and do a lot more laughing. That's what love is attached to.
And I would say, make the Christmas story your story. Find yourself in the story, and then be the Christmas that you want to see in the world.
Lovely.
I want to say just all of the above, because it was magnificent. Christmas is that opportunity to just take stock of ourselves and be given the gift of renewal and conversion, and the gift of listening to what that baby in the manger is telling us, or asking us to do and calling us to do. And I believe it's to go out and transform the world within our own little patch.
And actually showed us how.
Yes.
That's
yes.
what I love. Showed us how.
It's all there.
Yes, it is. I can't help it. I was born and raised in New York. I'm a cynic. I hear what you're all saying. And part of it I can embrace, and part of it is just I look at the world, and I try to look at the world from the heart. And this message is out there, and this message is so beautiful. It is so precise. It is, and I'm just like, where is it?
It's in you.
It's in
You do
It's
it
not
every day.
enough.
Oh, it
It's-
is enough.
No, it's not.
It is.
That's where we differ, I guess.
You know, Mandela, I heard in one of the recent talks on TV, said that for the first 11 years in prison in Robben Island, he lived in anger and hate. And he finally admitted that. And he said then he reached that moment where he realized it was not doing any good, that if he kept it up, the oppressor was winning. And he said, they cannot take my soul, my heart, and my mind, and I will not let them do it. And then that's when he began. And he's taught us that we can move from all that anger and bitterness and cynicism into a life of forgiveness and transformation.
Yeah, and he realized that if he didn't leave that behind, he would still be in prison.
Right.
And it's like Viktor Frankl
Yes,
did
exactly.
in the concentration camps. They couldn't touch that true him. It's just like Jesus. You know, they didn't crucify Christ. They did the body,
Take
but
my
they
body, but you
not.
can't take my heart and soul.
Now, this may be splitting hairs, and I got 2 minutes to do it. Nobody's taking anything from me. I'm giving it. Because I've had a life that has been a miraculous transformation. I came from a place that was just, there's no reason to look there and see me here right now in so many ways that are just not apparent. And there's something about that whole transformation why I do this show, why I did radio, why I do the work I do is because I want the world to get it. I got to end this. We're running out of time, but we had a show way back last year sometime, a handful of psychics in a variety of different manifestations, and we had a conversation, and part of the conversation was, why wouldn't you want to come back and work with others? And that's my goal. Heaven is for somebody else. Here's where I belong, in the trenches. It's just a matter of the gift. Why aren't everybody else getting it? It's there. If I could do this, anybody can do this, not because I'm the baddest or the worstest. I love you. We got to run. I think you're kind of telling me it's time to go. To all of you, thank you so much.
Thank you, Phil.
The gifts are huge. Love and light to you all. Have a great holiday season. Let the Spirit shine. Blessings to you all.
Amen.
I'm Rev Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.